got an awesome panel. I'll let everyone introduce themselves and what they're working on. Bartosz, you can start.
Yeah, I think I already introduced myself before. So Bartosz from Solana. If Bartosz is too hard to say, you can just call me B.
Yeah.
And I guess now we'll talk about NFTs. So Jordan told me to wear sunglasses.
Yes.
Yep.
I'm Jordan, also from Solana Labs. We do a lot of stuff with NFTs. Right now I'm working on a new gaming protocol called Raindrops with Bartosz over here.
Hey guys, I'm Irvin from OpenNet Technologies. Prior to that, I was doing a PhD in immersive telepresence and been around the space probably since 2012, doing Bitcoin, also working on Ethereum, and now on Solana. Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I guess metaverse is kind of those terms that's always in flux. Kind of depends on who's saying it and what they think it means. So maybe you can let us know, what does metaverse mean for you or to you, or define it? What does it consist of?
Sure. So for me, I think it's just universal way of representing ownership in the digital world.
Yeah, I somewhat agree with that. I guess for me, when I imagine the metaverse, I think of Ready Player One, the book. It really kind of encapsulated actually what we're trying to do with our protocol, like sort of this being able to define objects in a universal way that anyone can create clients around. So like you can have an immersive, like people have this stuff that they own, like these apes, these SMBs, whatever. They even have apartments now that they own. Being able to interact with those in any way someone can imagine, and then have it be shareable with other people. That's sort of like this next level of reality that is now enabled by having computers in your contact lenses and on your phone and everything. You can see this extra layer. That's what it's going to be.
But then the API on top of it, so people can easily integrate, right? So we had like digital worlds in games for a long time, but it was somewhat hard to integrate with them. And what blockchain enables is really this easy universal access for verification of what happened and who owns what.
Yes.
Yeah, I think, like to follow up on what Bartosz mentioned, because there's always been like, virtual reality has been there since like 1980s. And similar with like, quote unquote, cryptocurrencies, they've been out there quite long. I think what we have currently is a different approach to, for example, building decentralized cryptocurrencies and also doing provenance and virtual assets. But I think for us, I mean OpenDive, I think, the notion of the metaverse or achieving the metaverse is the next step towards developing cyber physical systems. And so I could, provide a bit of a longer explanation in that is that if you look at the current trends in technology or emerging technologies, 5G is kind of like a huge thing, but not many people know that's been around for quite a few years. It's been research. Actually, currently, the research is on 7G. And so, 5G in connection with IoT, Internet of Things, it talks about having interconnected worlds, right? Not only physical, but virtual. And so that is currently happening. And we look at other trends, for example, what's coming in next, I say probably within the decade, is part of our research, which was, immersive humanoid telepresence robots. So this actually, for example, means that you'll be able to go or visit Chicago while you're in Miami through a physical avatar, right? You're able to kind of see, hear, and feel from the remote environment. And so when you look at these concepts in terms of the metaverse, well, for us, it means that now we have the introduction of humanity into these concepts, but not only in the virtual space, but also the physical space. So our vision of the metaverse is that you're going to be able to kind of transport yourself from being in these kind of quote unquote immersive virtual worlds, but also to the physical world and vice versa, where your identity is translatable or transformable. So this is when we talk about, for example, virtual representations of wearables. So I might be wearing this kind of shirt or these glasses in the quote unquote virtual world, but also my physical avatar could perhaps also wear it. And we have provenance and also traceability in terms of ownership. And so that is really like, in a gist, how we feel about the metaverse and the way it could be.
Very cool. So what do you say to people that say, they're not very well educated on NFTs. They say they're just JPEGs. Like, what's one NFT project that you can introduce someone like that to that will kind of teach them what the use cases of NFTs are and why people have gotten pretty excited over it.
So in the digital space, at least on Solana, I really like portals. I think they're fairly straightforward to explain to people. From the things that are not necessarily built, what Bill mentioned, I guess, during my last talk, having your credentials as NFTs is interesting, having badges, something that correlates to your activities in real world and shows them that you can prove the ownership. Like the images or whatever, people are buying them, displaying them, maybe show them that, hey, I own this on Twitter. But I think the use cases are much wider, and going outside of the just JPEGs is easier to explain it to people that didn't necessarily interacted with it or are more skeptical about what's out there.
What's interesting about portals?
It allows you to build your own space. So you participate in the act of creation and then prove the ownership of what you built.
I think something, it really hasn't been fully explored on Solana yet, but I think it's coming soon. Right now, anyone can make an NFT and the creator verifies that NFT, and that's sort of the provenance port. But being able to describe different types of licenses and having a clean API for doing them. Like right now, if you want to, say, use a clip in your YouTube channel, the system not only is controlled by YouTube, it's kind of hard to use. You sometimes have to interact with people. It would be great if the licensing itself were actually on the blockchain, and I think that is in the near future. So, you say, yeah, I made this image, and you can right-click and save it, but that actually is illegal in most countries to use that image for money. But wouldn't it be great if I could take that image, I could make a clone of it, another NFT, and then also buy licensing rights to, say, exhibit it at some art show, right? Like you can have the licensing baked in and the payment system baked in, like royalties just happen automatically. You don't have to worry about it. You just, if you want to use a clip from some movie, it's just as easy as like drag and drop, and all the fees just flow automatically. And so that is a perfect use case for NFTs when you add in licensing. It actually makes the current intellectual property systems much more robust, clean, and efficient.
Nice.
Yeah, I think so. Mic is off. All right, there you go.
It's back.
Yeah, magic. So, yeah, 100%. I think the use case that we use, like when we were discussing it with Sean, my co-founder, and Finos, whoever team, it has been around licensing, right? Because in particular, though, I think we're excited about licenses as NFTs for gaming. And so, I think I was able to get through a few people, like in terms of like how NFT works or where the value when we discuss this, because a lot of times, when you go to we look at like, probably a decade ago, you used to go to kind of like GameStop and buy a game, right? An actual CD. And you go ahead and play it. If you got bored after a week, what do? Sell it, exactly. Or you go ahead and trade it with your friends or swap it, right? But what is happening in this decade right now is that you have something like Steam. And so what can you do with Steam? Well, you go ahead and buy a game and you download it. Okay, what if you get bored after like a week or 2 weeks, right? What can you do with it? You can't return it, you can't trade it, you can't sell it, right? And essentially, like the whole notion of being able to perhaps, for example, being able to put game licenses as NFTs kind of empowers the users to kind of trade and interact with other users, right? But this kind of breaks the model of the Steams of the world. And so, people tell me, well, what if Steam kind of allows you to kind of do this trading? Well, then how much of a cut are they going to get from this, right? And who can you trade this with? What can they monitor? And so they kind of get to an understanding to like, there's a bit of a centralization, and, perhaps we should go back to the old Blockbuster model. I never actually went to Blockbuster, but I was a thing was too young. But, back in the days, you could go on Blockbuster and rent games. And so then, you think about it, now we have another model that we could apply now presently, where perhaps you have rentals and subscriptions that could be sold as NFTs and so on. So I think that's how we got through to a few people, kind of understanding how NFTs could be used to kind of create peer-to-peer markets and also improve, secondary markets and accessibility to games.
Yeah. Well, one thing that has been remarkable that we've seen is when we were building the original protocol, we were sort of discussing how to enforce royalties on chain, right? Like one answer would actually be to basically deploy our own token program, but then none of the wallets of the world will be able to interact with our app unless they built sort of special code just for interacting with NFTs. But then we could enforce royalties. We decided not to do that. We decided to just put the royalties on chain and let people who were trading NFTs or building marketplaces just choose whether or not to actually enforce those royalties. And surprisingly, the social experiment actually works out. The companies that are in the business of providing good user experiences to people to draw in trading volume want to enforce the royalties because they have they're incentivized to provide the creators of those NFTs, like they want those creators to come back and keep doing stuff. And so the system has enforced itself, but also you won't often see NFTs charging more than 10% royalties. Like there's this sort of natural push and pull. If someone sets an NFT to 100%, like someone did recently, people just find ways to trade it sort of like illegally. It's sort of like there's a upper and lower bound on royalties, and it's completely enforced by just people being people. There's no laws or anything. It's really interesting.
I think, like, so people always ask me, okay, so what's the difference between NFTs and Ethereum and Solana, right? And so one of the key things he mentions, though, that there's already a social consensus of what needs to happen when you trade NFTs or create a marketplace, right? It's like almost social enforceability, whereas on the EVM side, that's not really there. And the way to kind of like use royalties is very obtuse, right? It's like only if you want or you think your users could perhaps use royalties, then you could call this other contract. Whereas, like on Solana side, it's always been part of the standard, right, since the beginning. Yeah. So
that ignores royalties today.
Yeah.
Even the little P2P protocols that are now spouting up where you can like offer to trade a basket of NFTs and coins for some other basket of NFTs and coins, they do royalties. It really works.
So are there any plans to, like, I assume when you guys first launched that, you were like, if the experiment works, great. If it doesn't, we have a plan to enforce royalties. Is there still a plan to enforce royalties?
I mean, I don't think so. I don't think anyone is going to a model where the smart contract enforces it, because the primary reason for not doing it was not it was like hard or technically difficult. It's actually probably straightforward. But there are always ways around anything that's on the blockchain. Like the extreme use cases, I will just give you my wallet. I will give you the ledger with the pin and you have it and we trade it off chain. And there's no way to prevent that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, with this world, you kind of have to approach it through the sense of people are only going to do something if it has a positive expected value for them. But you can't punish them into doing something. You have to reward them for doing something.
I don't think autonomous systems, like for example, in the case of robots producing data, like why they want to pay royalties or why should they pay royalties for that, right? That could be one use case where you don't need royalties.
I think this like segues nicely to communities, like how communities are built in the metaverse or with these NFT protocols or projects. I guess they are the ones who are enforcing it, because if the creators or people start doing this stuff, you're just going to have less supply. So how do you guys view community building in that space, and how is it different from like DeFi and maybe the rest of the crypto, different types of chains?
So I guess there's two different questions. In terms of how the communities are different, I think they are more engaged. Whenever you have the multiple tokens in my wallet, I don't really get attached to them. Right? The fact that I have, I don't know, 10 Mango tokens or 100 Pyth tokens doesn't mean anything to me. I think of them as like just money that you can spend. But when you have like an NFT, sometimes you get attached to them, like this portal thing or rocks or whatever. I feel associated with them through one way or another. The same way people get attached with the characters in games that they play, even if they are not NFTs. And ultimately, this is how communities are formed, either in games or around TV shows. People get associated with characters or the persona that they are projecting somewhere else. And the tokens are not giving you that, and DeFi protocols are not giving you that either. And I think the way they are built stems from that fact that they are different. So you need to show people that there is a story and why they should care. Where in DeFi, you want to show them that they will make money. Very, very different aspect of life.
Yeah. And this goes into the whole right-click save controversy. Humans like to collect things. And also humans like to form groups, and they love to exclude from groups. So if you just right-click and save a JPEG, all the people that actually decided to really own that JPEG, they're not going to let you into their group. That's what Grape is. It's an exclusionary tool to keep people out of Discords that don't actually have the given NFT.
Yeah, just like the rocks in the Polynesian island.
Yes.
Right? If you don't put the marks on the rock, you don't own anything.
Yes. Yeah, so the ownership does matter. Humans, for some reason, we just like collecting things. We like knowing that we're the only ones that have it. We're part of this special group that has it. It's a feeling as old as humanity itself. It's just NFTs are a new way of expressing it.
Yeah, I think there's a socioeconomic culture factor to just NFTs, right? And I first got a gist of this back in around 2016, 2017, where the Rare Pepes sort of kicked off. So for those of you who don't know, Rare Pepes were like quote unquote the first NFTs that were on the Bitcoin blockchain. And they got moved to Ethereum overall, right? And what happened was that people were making these Rare Pepes, and then they were trading them and using them without making any money, right? They were just doing it off chain. And then all of a sudden, someone started selling like a Rare Pepe on eBay, and it was worth a few $100s, right? But then you started to see how, well, I started to see, and people discuss it afterwards, that there was a bit of like communities being formed around, you know, how people that like appreciated that the actual digital asset grew in value, and then like communities that just enjoyed the art. They thought it was quirky and funny, right? And so those are a few things that happen within these quote unquote like collections, right? The NFT collections, the generative collections, and I think you know one of the ones that did quite well and everyone knows is like Bored Apes, because people were able to relate to the actual apes. Like personally, I minted a few, and I minted the one with the VR goggles. That's the one I wanted. I collected almost all of them at the beginning, right? And my friend, she just wanted to collect the one with the eye patch because it's thing for like, he has punks and pirates and stuff like that, right? And that's who he associated himself with. But then later, when you look at like the Bored Ape community, for example, it's like a whole bunch of people now, let's say they have like a $500,000, you know, quote unquote digital asset. Like that's a micro community within the macro community that formed. And essentially being able to do that well is, you know, means a success to your project in essence.
Very cool. What do you guys think of like the gaming side and then the DeFi side that comes into all of the stuff that's being created right now? NFTs are certainly a part of it, but I think they're only a piece. There is a monetization or making money aspect to this side of the industry.
Sometimes, I guess. I don't think all the experiences, all the games need to be monetized. I mean, sometimes I just want to play the game and don't worry about the money.
And just enjoy it.
Yeah. And maybe if I can pull my character from other games, that's one use case that I would be happy with. And you know, let's say I played some character 10 years ago and I liked it, and I just want to use it across the game. That's good enough for me.
Actually, if I know a game is play to earn, I probably won't play it because I know that it will feel like work eventually. That grind feeling is just not like the games that him and I have played together. They're not really much of a grind.
They are.
Well, they are, but it's like an intellectual. I don't know.
Takes like 40 hours.
Yeah, but it's a beautiful 40 hours.
Maybe Halo should be play to earn, Jordan.
Yeah, no. But yeah, I do think play to earn will be a major component. Like, I think there's a place for that. And I think there will actually be games that just have sort of two sides to it, right? Like, I mean, World of Warcraft is sort of an early example of that. There was a whole group, there's like a whole subculture of people in World of Warcraft that's their job. They make money off of it. They produce items and goods that other people that are playing it recreationally just trade fiat for to get access to. And I do think that'll sort of probably be what the future of games looks like. There will be people that work in the game and people that play the game. I think the age where the things are combined, I don't know that will last. But you know, we'll see. I do think it's all linked. The thing that is surprising to me is that people are now coming up with ways to collateralize SMBs. Like how do you price that accurately? How do you keep track of the floor price? Make sure that it gets, you know, revoked at the right time. Like that is a very interesting thing to see.
Yeah, maybe.
That's all you have
I
on
think
it.
it's interesting.
Yeah.
It's interesting, but it's an unsolved problem. I think collateralization
Yeah.
of NFTs.
So really, I don't think it's been done well at scale yet, but it'll be interesting to see when it does happen.
Stay away from the auction model. It's broken. That's what everyone's using for NFT collaterals. But yeah, I think picking up on what Jordan said, like right for gaming, WoW is one of them. RuneScape was a huge one. I know a lot of friends that were making money by like selling GP. Speculation on the value of digital assets within games has always been there, right? And so the whole notion of actually being able to reward someone for is actually quite interesting, right? Because for example, like even when you look at New World, if you guys are familiar with Amazon's game, there were a ton of bots there speculating on the actual currency itself. But if you look at what happened a few months ago, well, there was this whole duplicate attack. It wasn't an attack, but essentially every time you went across a different server, the amount of currency you had doubled in price. And so if you look at like the metrics that people start assessing is that the bots are left because now there's hyperinflation in the game, right? So if it ever kind of reaches outside where people want to pay for this virtual gold or virtual currency, you're not gonna make any money, I think overall. But like in our case, like fundamentally, like at least with the open dive, when I think about play to earn and what it's supposed to be, I think overall it's supposed to transform labor structures no matter what, right? Because the notion to be able to earn or make a living by playing a game is revolutionary, right? When you look at, for example, people in emerging economies and how much they could make a day or in a week versus how much they could perhaps, make within a game, it changes people's lives, right? It's a way, for example, for them to pay for college, pay for housing, etc. And it's similar to what already happens currently, for example, in China. If you guys go on Taobao, you see someone available 24/7 to answer questions. There's literally people there, like sitting on a computer waiting for someone to ask a question about a product. And they're getting paid maybe like $5, a day or something like that. And so that's what I mean by transforming labor structures. But yeah, like as Jordan Bartosh said, is there's still a lot of room to grow because like games should be fun, right? Games shouldn't be just about yield farming. That's what currently is. Like most quote unquote play to earn games that you see out there, it's just yield farming with an additional step or UI, as you see in crypto Twitter, right? I mean, I don't want to bash on these games, but literally is what it is, right? And so then the question is, who is the demographic they're targeting this game at? Is it, my nephew who is like 8 years old or my cousin who's 13? I don't think so, right? They're not gonna play this game, like click, farm, swap, earn yields, etc. So there's a lot of room to go. But the other thing, and last thing I would say, that is actually quite complicated to introduce cryptocurrencies into games. When you look at MMORPGs, think about having a multi-currency system, right? And the multi-currency system is not only impacted by internal forces within the game, like Amazon, messing up their servers, but external forces. Meaning that, like if you guys play Apex Legends, they have Apex coin and 4 other currencies. One of them is an event coin. This event coin is only supposed to be used, for example, for events, okay? No matter what. And they use it to trade skins for particular events only. Now the question is, what happens if event coin becomes a cryptocurrency? So now maybe one event coin you could use to trade a skin, but outside of the game, this event coin is worth $100. Do you think someone's gonna now use the event coin to buy that skin? Probably not, right? They're gonna speculate. Even if you're like a young person playing a game, you're not gonna sell like this event coin, right? So there's a lot of like things to like really think at the economical level, right? So it's a complex problem overall. But I think currently, play to earn games have a bit of a long way to go. And we're thinking about these problems when we design like the economics for our game, Open Era, overall.
Awesome. I guess let's end it on, if you wanted to, give some steps, some basic steps for the audience to get more involved in the metaverse in some way.
Sure.
Give them a recommendation.
So if you didn't do anything on Solana, go install Phantom Wallet and go to Magic Eden or Fractal and try to buy something, even if it's really cheap, for like a $3, $5, like experience the end-to-end workflow of actually buying something. If you feel adventurous, go mint something. So that's like primary versus secondary market. That's from the user perspective. And you should do it regardless. Even if you're an engineer, you should think like a user. And if you're an engineer, you should start building something on top of that. So the standard on Solana is fairly extensible through program-derived addresses. Think how you can extend the protocol, submit pull requests back to Metaplex, so we can all build together.
Yeah, I mean, all of that, definitely. Once you've done all of that, I would really like to see a protocol on top of Metaplex that deals with treating licensing as a kind of token, so that it can be bought and sold. There can be swap pools. There can be price discovery for licensing of these objects. So I think it's a wide open field. So once you learn how the Metaplex underlying protocol works, no one's really fixed that problem yet. Be nice to see.
I think it's very easy. Just, go on the App Store, download Facebook and Instagram, and then you're in the Metaverse. No, I think, so presently I would say, look at the Metaplex website and the doc. It's very interesting. They talk a bit about interoperability of like assets. And so if you try to get a bit technical, you understand, it's like where things like the Metaverse standard come into play, and what the Metaverse awaits, because interoperability between digital assets and also being able to have like open, accessible systems that have an underlying trustless source of truth will become valuable in the near future, and not just for the Metaverse or this kind of virtual concept people think, but everything we do, right? Because things like Internet of Things are already coming. Concepts related to data privacy will be getting more focus here in the States and across the world. And so, yeah, I think maybe just look at the repo and, of course, download Phantom and also get minting, perhaps.
Nice. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you.